aren't you dirty cocksuckers? Tell all your grave robbing friends I want them out of the city now!
The nightmare of insane murder.
From the depths of hell.
The angel of death. Only at the Grindhouse.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Grindhouse, where we drink coffee and talk about movies. My name is Shawn, and today with my girlfriend and co-host Leah Diana, we will be winding back the reel to 1989. Nightmares bring a college student to the brink of his sanity, plaguing him and his fellow students in the psychological supernatural horror film Beyond Dream's Door. Let's get into it.
Professor Knox. Did you read this?
What is it?
Just a dream.
Benjamin Dobbs has opened a door into his mind.
Has anything even remotely like your dream ever happened to you in real life?
No, absolutely nothing.
The dream, is it always the same?
They're like a chain, hooking on to each other. I don't want to know where it's going to end.
And unleashed a horror for all those who know what he dreams.
I can't feel anything!
Beyond Dream's Door.
We have things to do before we go to sleep.
So I'd like to dive into this by talking a little bit about that. There's a type of film that we filmmakers often try to avoid at all costs. It's one that nobody likes, whether you're a filmmaker or not. It's a very prominent thing that ends up coming out of college students, which is the college art film. They're often these high concept, overly analytical, pretentious movies. While I wouldn't call what we just watched entirely a college art film, it's pretty fucking close. It is worth noting that this movie began as a short film that the director was making when he was in Ohio State University. So it is technically a college art film that he then turned into a feature, but I wouldn't call it as pretentious as I thought it was going to be when it first started.
I'm at a loss for words on how much I hated this film. We live in a state where one of the best art schools in the country is. Y'all have heard of RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. It is a prestigious, expensive art college to get into. And we've both seen what RISD can put out. Granted, this is 1989. I gotta, sign of the times. Let's scale it back. This is as old as Shawn is. I fucking hated this.
So what did you hate about it?
I see what he was doing. I see where he was going. I see it. It's a college art film. I read one review that I read where it got rave reviews. People love this film. They love it because it has such deep meaning. Why did it have to have such, intricate? No, intricate isn't the word. Why did it have to have such in-depth, deep meaning to the point of, huh? That was me. Whole movie. My face was like, what? I had no idea what I was following. I had no idea what the story was supposed to be. Anytime they asked a question, a direct question to the character, it was a runaround answer that never even solidified.
Well, this is the thing. This is why people don't like these types of movies, because generally college students, they come out of school or even during school, they develop this higher brow type of thinking where they feel like everything has to be meaningful and deep, and they want to pour all of these like interesting philosophical ideas that they're learning about into things that they're making. And I'm speaking strictly of like college level filmmakers, because it happens.
Not graduated college filmmakers. No, college level, still learning the trade.
It happens a lot where these types of filmmakers they'll just try and make these movies that are just overly, that they want them to be overly interesting, so that they feel like they're making something impactful. While I think this movie is trying to do that, I also think that it's not as complex as it feels like it is.
For someone like me who I watch a movie to be entertained, I'm not watching a movie to learn a lesson or be told some deep secret meaning of like Socrates or like psychology. Like, I wanted this movie from the posters and the title. I was hoping for Into the Mouth of Madness with Sam Neill, or, you know, something a little bit better than, honestly, I'm looking at it right now, The Haunting, with, you know, Liam Neeson as a psych professor who's like, I want to analyze people's dreams. I'm sorry, I'd rather watch The Haunting 5 times over than this, because I half understand what he was getting at. I half understand the Lovecraftian, psychological, cosmic horror he was going for. The visuals were fine. The visuals were great. You had a little bit of TNA to kind of entice them to kind of pull them in, but not fucking necessary at all.
No,
I do not think the nudity was necessary in this film. I believe they put it in there to be like, oh, there's a little raunchiness. Like,
I don't even think it was that, really. I think it was more that
it was a seduction type. Like, dreams can be seductive, and
it was
horror can be like Hellraiser. In that review I read, it was as like seductive as Hellraiser. On what fucking grounds?
It was, they're trying to use the nudity in a sense of like that perverse nature of dreams kind of thing.
Okay, and then it's a college professor and his 2 TAs, which they're not college students. They're in a graduate program, so they're not even on the same level as this kid. And I see where they were trying to go, but there wasn't enough information. Like, at least in A Haunting, Liam Neeson put forth, okay, this was the paper that I based this off of. This is what I'm doing. There was explanation. Nowhere in this entire thing was there explanation onto what was happening. We knew that the main character, Ben, was having problems with not remembering dreams and all of a sudden remembering them. We know that something came out of his dreams, and anybody who he involved with them was involved with it. That's it. I don't understand anything else beyond that point.
So you're not far off, but I mean, I'm gonna do my best to try and break down this movie.
There's no breakdowns online anywhere, and this was impossible to step by step follow, because I looked at you at one point, I'm like, we were maybe 20 minutes in the movie, I'm like, I have no fucking clue what's happening.
It's because the style that this film is made in is a very surrealistic style of storytelling, which makes sense for a movie about dreams.
Yes.
Because dreams are very hard to interpret most of the time. I'll get into this a little bit later on like what I think they were trying to do, but I guess we should get into the basic information about this movie. So today we watched Beyond Dream's Door. It was came out in 1989. As we said, we don't have a ton of information on this movie because there's not a lot out there other than people's
It was a Ohio
analysis.
State University collab with these kids. Literally, that's what it says.
It was written, directed, and the music was composed by Jay Wolfel. So, like we said, this was a college project that he began and then evolved into a feature film. This came out in the U.S. It was made on 16 millimeter. It's a very... Yeah, the whole movie was in 4:3 aspect ratio.
It looked like it was filmed all at the college, and then a couple of the kids, like, maybe apartments.
Wherever they were living at the time, kind of thing. that's about it. I don't have a ton of information on how this movie was made, or there is information out there within people's analysis of it. There's no like basic structure anywhere. It doesn't have a Wikipedia page. It has nothing to go off of.
And you know, if it doesn't have a Wikipedia page, I'm lost. Because I reference the Wikipedia page because I have a really shit memory. Even if I watch something 10 minutes ago, I have to be like, what was that? And I always have to have it up. I got nothing this time. I got nothing.
Yeah. This movie's often compared to things like Nightmare on Elm Street and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
I've never seen that one. Honestly, like, the only other movie that I can think of about dreams that I wish, and it's a really, really big stretch because one's a student film and one's a Hollywood blockbuster, is What Dreams May Come. Even that movie is very confusing from the dream aspect, but that's all about the repercussions of death and how you accept it. But it still has a dream component where things are very confusing. But it does its best to kind of explain, like, through context clues, how. There was really no context clues other than you sitting there going, okay, so X and Y, but by the time you're like, okay, maybe that's Z, there's another thing that pops in and you're like, well, how did that come about?
It just kind of goes to show you how interpretive dreams can be, because you look at something like this where it's meant for you to watch it and pull what you want out of it, kind of a thing, while something like Inception literally breaks down how dreams work so that you can follow the layers of the film.
Well, that movie's meant to have an explanation because, you know, Inception's been out for a long time, so because by the end of that film, you're supposed to be questioning what the fuck's happening next.
Yes.
The whole explanation is the point for that 10 seconds at the end. And that's it. That was the most mind-blowing part of that. And while I don't hate this in a sense of it's not a good story, it's a decent story. I just hate the fact that you, being someone who is very into films, and you're like, oh, I can kind of follow this. I can understand. I, as a normal film goer who just sits there to watch, to be entertained, is sitting here going, the fuck did I just watch?
But that's the thing. With a lot of these higher brow, like, college type of movies, they are aiming to make a movie that's for a more intellectual audience, which is not usually the case. Like most of the time, an intellectual audience isn't going to be the ones watching this stuff.
Yeah.
Which is why people end up hating these fucking movies so much.
And I know that it's not fair to hate it, because I'm not that I'm not intellectual, but I'm not as into, like, the interpretation of films. I'm very into the interpretation of dreams. I have, unfortunately, you do not have vivid dreams and you do not remember them, but you also told me when you were a kid, you had terrible nightmares. Terrible. So you as an adult could be like, yeah, your subconscious doesn't remember your dreams because they're terrifying, you know, and maybe your dreams are like this. Mine, I remember my dreams in vivid detail, and I've started writing them down, which I've realized that I have a lot of mental issues and I need to work on them. But, like, yes, my dreams are as kind of spacey as this, where you don't get a lot of information and you have to fill in the blanks. But when you're watching a movie, you don't want the blanks to be filled in the whole movie. Like certain films, you want to, at the end, if it's a cold end, you want to be able to insert your own ending or your own way of it going. There were like at least 10 or 15 times where I'm like, am I supposed to like put my own opinion in this? Because I don't necessarily want to do that for the whole film. I'm okay with like a couple of points, but like there was half the movie where I'm like, all right, am I just supposed to assume this here? Or, you know, there's one part involving the storage room warehouse thing where I'm like, what the fuck is this, Liz? And I know it's all dream stuff, but this is the first time in the podcast where I'm looking at you going, I need you to help me interpret this because I don't understand what I just watched at all.
Well,
and our audience needs help too, because
like I said, it's a surrealistic movie. And with surrealism, things often don't make sense. And that's kind of the point. like you're supposed to, things are supposed to make you feel uneasy,
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, and like things that should be off-putting, and kind of not give you answers to some of the reasoning as to why things are the way they are playing out. I do want to talk more about like what I think this movie was trying to do, and like my thoughts on it, and then I'll do my best to break it down at least a little bit. But before we do that, let's go through the back of the box.
It's the back of the box. It's the great big back of the box.
It's worth noting we watched this movie on Shudder because they have the Vinegar Syndrome transfer.
The transfer was gorgeous.
Yes.
The transfer was very clear. It almost looked like 720 or 1080p. It was really clear for a 1980s 16mm movie. I will say that. It was beautiful.
The movie looked great. Kudos to Vinegar Syndrome as always.
No defects, no scratches, no nothing.
There were some.
I didn't notice them because I was so confused.
Yeah, there were definitely some at certain moments. But most of the movie looked pretty clean other than grain. Yeah. But you get grain with 16mm. However, I do have a VHS copy of the movie.
You do, which I'm very, surprised about.
This VHS comes from Vid America Inc., which was a New York distribution company, I guess. And it's not the greatest looking tape. I mean, like, the cover art for this one isn't all that fantastic.
I love the cover art because it's Julie when she's like that almost thriller-esque mummified. Yeah. And I thought it was very interesting, but seeing that, I think that's one of the best shots of the film. Seeing that where she's like, it's the dreamlike Julie, but it's also half her trying to kind of protect Eric.
Yeah, okay.
And I kind of see where that was coming from, where it was like the remnants of her were still trying to be like, hey, snap out of it, solve this, like, you don't want to end up like I am, kind of thing.
I do like that this cover doesn't give you anything.
Nothing.
Like, no information on what you're about to see. And on the back, there's literally one image. One tiny little image.
One little itty bitty image, yep.
But the back of the box starts off with a bunch of quotes. A highly acclaimed must-see winner, attributed to no one. H.P. Lovecraft-inspired, ambitious, thoughtful, well-produced, surreal dream demon flick, starring original music and just enough of the red. This one comes from Deep Red Magazine. A well-crafted, thought-provoking, and chilling journey. It is a nightmare worth remembering. Horror Fan Magazine. Beyond Dream's Door creates an ominous dreamscape that is sinister and startling. Slaughterhouse Magazine. All of which I don't think exist anymore.
No, none of those exist. I've never heard of any of them.
Beyond Dream's Door. It's where dreams become reality and your worst nightmares come true. Suspense, action, adventure, and a terrifically exciting story combined to make this tale of terror an unforgettable experience. Ben Dobbs, an all-American college student, has been repressing his strange and terrifying dreams since childhood. Suddenly, he loses control. His dreams turn into living nightmares, where he must fight a seductive but deadly dream girl in a house inhabited by the living dead. In a tense battle of wits, strength, and determination, Ben must make the toughest and perhaps last decision of his life.
He's laughing because none of this makes sense to what we've just watched.
Mainly the sentence about the fighting the seductive dream girl in the house inhabited by the living dead.
I'm sorry, the seductive dream girl was just like, hi, here are my tits. Woo! That was it.
That one line is very misleading.
It's very misleading.
It's not what you get in this movie.
House of the Dead? No. Okay. No. That description is wildly misleading. Not inaccurate. None of it is untrue.
It's just
very misleading.
It makes you think that you're gonna get like almost like a dreamy zombie movie.
It would be like Resident Evil with like the that fog. That's what I think. But no.
So I guess the best place to start is the practical effects throughout the movie.
I will say They were great. Practical effects were amazing.
They were visceral. They were highly memorable.
They were tacky. They were 80s. They were like, you could see right through the practical effects, but I don't care.
I also thought they looked really good for a budget level
for a student
of this.
film. How much do you think this would have cost them?
Oh, the budget had to be minimal.
I would say less than like $50,000. Less. Because they were using what looked like their own vehicles, their own clothes, their own homes, the college. They probably just needed a lot of the money for equipment, for being able to use the place at night. Because if you noticed, it was either used early in the morning or late at night.
Yeah.
And there was only a couple of scenes where there were other college students, but that was pretty much it.
I loved the Dream Demon. Like, he's just this janky ass puppet.
He looks like something that Jim Henson used once, threw away, and these guys went, "Oh, cool, a monster." That's what, so honestly, cool. It looked like. Its face looked like if you stripped away one of those, like, Muppet crocodiles. That's what it looked like.
And honestly, it kind of looked like they were... It kind of felt like they were trying to go for this look of, like, an animal that they just, like, ripped the skin off of.
Yeah, because they mentioned something like it looked more... It looked a little bit like a bear, or like a giant wombat, or like some sort of like that type of creature.
But it had these long arms.
Spindly arms with like only 3 fingies on them and like claws, and it was dripping and huge. But then you saw the scenes where the head was there, like it was like boom, boom, rah! And then you saw the head and you're like, oh, I can see all of the hot glue.
That's a hand puppet.
Hey, I'm gonna come eat you. Nom nom nom. Like I was like, oh, he's so cute. Am I supposed to be scared of him?
I don't know, I just thought it was a cool, and they did a decent job never like showing you the full thing.
No, honestly, I appreciate that because I hate it and they do it a lot now where trailers will not show the monsters. Nothing. They'll show you nothing. They'll give you like this second glimpse. And now, because people are terrified of all this shit, they'll put the thumbnails and the monsters right there. And it's like, come the fuck on.
Yeah,
some of us don't want to see this. You know, what's the one that we were pissed at that they put the monster in?
The Boogeyman.
The Boogeyman.
The new Stephen King adaptation.
So excited for the Boogeyman, but when we looked at the trailer, nothing was apparent. It was just like a kid on a bed. Like, it looked terrifying.
You never see it in the trailer.
The next day, it was the monster on the thing. I was like, come on, guys.
Yeah, because somebody they did a trailer reaction, and then they freeze framed the trailer at the one, millisecond flash that you see it. And they were like, that's our thumbnail.
Why?
Fuck you.
Why would you spoil it?
You're such an asshole.
The best things.
Whoever you are that made that video, I fucking hate you. I hate you so much.
I hope you stub your toe and you get an infection. That's what I hope. It's like Alien. You don't see that fucking thing until the last, 10 minutes when Ripley's trapped with it.
Yeah, not in full,
and
no.
it's fucking gorgeous because they knew that it looked like an actual fucking human in that suit. You could see all of the muscle structure of a real human in that suit.
Right.
And to be able to hide it gives it more mystery. The fact that cosmic horror is supposed to be questioning the entire time, that's why you can get away with a monster that looks janky like this, because you're like, wait a minute, it's supposed to be a dream. You're never going to remember it exactly how it was shown in your mind when you're half asleep. So that's why I was like, oh, I love this guy. The effects where he's like gnawing on people, where he's killing people, those effects, while tacky and gaudy, were great, because you're thinking, these are students, these are young people, and none of that looked bad. It looked great. I praise them for the work that they did in 1989 for that. On a budget of, probably cornstarch and red dye, a little bit of red paint thinned down, and maybe some red glue. It looked good.
Honestly, that same thought process, for me at least, goes throughout the whole movie. Especially knowing that the director wrote all this himself. He directed it. He did the score himself. To sell the dream, idea of the dreamscape and everything, he is continuously employing these this strange blend of like ethereal sound and this like dreamy score for the entire movie, so that you almost never really know what's dream and what's reality.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings me into some of my thoughts on this thing. Is like it was very clear to me that the approach was to make it that dreams are bleeding into reality, so that you never know what you're seeing. Like, is this real? Is it not? When you use the concept of dreams in a movie, you kind of give yourself this automatic out of everything. No matter, you can do anything you want because it's a dream. It doesn't matter. You can hard cut from the most odd imagery into the mundane because
it's a dream.
Why not?
Yeah.
Like in dreams, things can happen that way. It kind of gives you a pass on the sense that this movie feels so convoluted. So you can kind of be like, well, it is a dream, ultimately.
But at the same time, if you're going to have a normal audience like myself watch this, I'm not saying that normal audiences are stupid. I'm just saying you gotta give us a little bit more.
I don't disagree with you. Like, I do think that this should have been dumbed down a little because it's so interpretive.
It's a lot. It's a lot for me to handle as somebody who enjoys dream interpretation and as somebody who sits there and knows, all right, well, you're dreaming about reuniting with lost loved ones, or you're dreaming about finding something you lost. Well, that's because you're missing something. You're missing someone. You're missing something. You're reminiscing in your mind. Dreams are extremely easy to piece together if you really think about it. But you really have to sit there and think what you're dreaming and what you're missing in your life.
Correct. Which actually is why I feel that this movie isn't as convoluted as it feels like it is. So I'm going to try and break it down really, like, simply here, and then we'll get into greater detail in a second. But, so, like, the concept is actually pretty simple for this movie. You have a man plagued by a dream demon, and that causes his dreams to bleed into reality. This has happened to other people before, and he's just the next victim of it.
He's the next link in the chain. And that's what they kept saying, and I understood that part.
Yes. There's also the element that when he tells other people about what's happening to him, they also become kind of infected by it. Not to the same degree, but the entity is then able to influence their dreams. So it's essentially, it's feeding on these people that are becoming infected by it and erasing evidence of its existence so that it can keep this perpetual cycle going.
Yeah, so it can never be found truly.
Yes. And it's so Ben then has to attempt to lure it back to where he believes it came from and trap it so that it can't keep doing this to people. And the surreal style that everything is done in just makes it hard to follow, but that's basically the very simple layout of it. And I think that was a very smart decision by the director to like keep it's a very, very simple story.
But the way he told it confuses a normal audience.
Exactly. He just went about it in a very intricate way.
He chose to use his actual film school knowledge and the way that they try to analyze film, because every film can be analyzed and interpreted in a new way.
Yeah.
Like to the point where, oh God, give me one that I've seen, that Dawn of the Dead. You can interpretate that movie a billion ways. You can, really.
There's a lot of meaning in it, yeah.
It is. It's a lot of meaning for a simple zombies, end of the world, trying to survive. There's a lot of ways you can interpret that movie. Now, there's two different versions. There's the original and then there's the remake. Both of them have two different meanings, but it's the same story. You watch the struggles of the people in two different ways. which I believe movies are supposed to be interpreted in different ways. That's why a remake is never truly as good as the original, because the original is original. The remake is a reimagining of somebody else's interpretation of the original source material.
Yeah.
And this, I believe, and you ask at the end and I'll give my input, but I mean, I believe you and I would have two very different ways of telling this story, but still keeping it true to this. But I think yours would be almost on the same level as director, and mine would be a couple of steps down, so a normal audience could probably enjoy it a little more.
So I think I'm going to attempt to break this one down. It's not... The breakdown I have, it's nowhere... It's not entirely coherent, and it's also incomplete by...
We'll try to fill in the blanks as much as possible because the story is very direct the plot is so direct. It is boom, 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 done. But the story it tells is in multiple layers. That's confusing. There's a lot of scenes, a lot. They must have been filming this for weeks.
Like the opening alone is like it opens us in Dream.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of Dream, which is shifting between various parts of, like, layers of Dream.
And it's strange because, yes, you know you're opening on a dream. And then he wakes up. And you're in another dream. And then he wakes up again. And then he's in another dream. But it's in reality. But then it goes in Dream. And that's how it happens the whole way through.
And that's the thing. Like, Ben... The fact that his dreams are bleeding into reality makes it really tough because he's essentially dreaming the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like, from start to finish, he never breaks dream cycle.
No, he
which
doesn't.
Is so weird. I've never really seen that done in a movie before.
And I think maybe that's why, because it's so hard to interpret completely. Some other movies have touched upon doing something like this, but they don't keep it going throughout the entire an hour and 20-minute film.
But I have to say that's what makes it so interesting.
See, that's where I think it hurts it.
And that's okay.
I think this is the first film where we truly have two different opinions, and I don't think either opinion is wrong.
No. Ben Dobbs is your average, everyday student. Regular guy, he's trying to make his way through college, but as far as he knows, he's never had dreams in his life, I guess. And he's suddenly started to be, like, plagued by nightmares of this thing that's trying to get him.
Desperately trying to reach out to him.
So when he sleeps, he's tortured reoccurringly by people that I guess have passed. He says he never had a brother, but in one of his dreams he has a little brother.
Yeah. I kind of interpreted that as him.
Maybe. I don't know.
Did you notice there was a lot of inspiration from It?
Oh, there's a lot.
Huge amount. And it's not bad because It is a fever dream in itself.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it makes you question, well, did this guy watch, a movie that may have traumatized him and now, like, it's bleeding into his dreams?
I don't even think it was the miniseries had been out at that point.
Oh, he could have read the book.
I think he probably read the book, if anything. But yeah, there's, like, so he's seeing this little kid, this naked temptress lady.
That poor woman, by the way, the amount of goose pimples on her body in every scene, I felt so bad. Oh my god.
He keeps seeing this, like, big red slimy demon.
A red balloon.
A hook-handed janitor.
Yeah, that was weird. That one, like, was that supposed to be the monster's interpretation of humanity?
I don't know.
Because to me it was like, okay, well, I
actually think that maybe because the janitor didn't really start coming in until after
he handed the second paper to Eric.
Well, until Eric became involved.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe that was bleed over from, like, Eric's dreams.
Was there any bleed over from Julie?
I don't know.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is she was doing the dream experiments with Dr. Oh God, hang on, Knox. Dr. Knox.
Yeah.
And maybe she had watched the dream tape so many times that it started bleeding in, and that's why we were seeing kind of like almost a surveillance type video of her and Eric. I feel like maybe her dreams were centered around she works too much, or she's doing these studies too much. Yeah, that's the only thing I could interpret from her.
But the most important thing that came out of his dreams was the pair of cement and steel doors in the floor.
Yeah.
Which becomes very important for the end of the film. Somehow these doors and what lie underneath them he feels are the center of everything. So Ben starts to feel that the dreams are becoming real and that something horrible is like awaiting him. He's afraid that he's losing his mind, so he turns to his psychology professor, Dr. Knox, and his TAs, Eric and Julie, sorry. The psychologists are initially skeptical of Ben's concerns, but Dr. Knox starts to get interested when he realizes that Ben's experiences are identical to another patient.
J.D. White, I believe it was.
I think that was his name.
Yeah.
So together they start researching the case that was written in a journal. And during this, the creature actually comes for Ben, but it ends up murdering the doctor. The hook-handed janitor appears and ends up cleaning up the mess. So that's the thing. That's the first time we see the janitor, which I guess could just be a physical manifestation of the creature cleaning up its evidence.
Because I was thinking that it could be because it said that Ben is the next link in a long chain. He could be taking the form of previous links. So maybe the hook-handed janitor was someone else he took over.
No, the janitor in a weird way kind of looked like that other kid he kept seeing, which I assume was white.
Yeah, yep.
So like maybe like a older, like more like decrepit version of that
white
kid.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the idea.
Maybe like once that dream demon takes the next victim, he now has those victims in his arsenal, like Julie became a big one. And even because the monster was slowly taking Ben, he could make himself look like Ben too as well.
Yeah.
But not a perfect one. If you notice, Ben wasn't perfect. He was grayed. He was kind of funky looking, just like Julie. So it could be like maybe he was a hook-handed janitor because he couldn't take all of the personality.
Maybe.
I don't know. And this is where it comes from, where we're even sitting here analyzing this, being like, we don't have all the questions, so here's what we believe.
Yeah, and it's tough because there's other parts of the movie, like there was that dream where Ben goes into the sewer thing and then meets himself,
but older and looks like he's been running for years.
Yeah.
And he finds a wallet who I assumed, maybe that's Dr. Knox's wallet, but it's his own license in there. And
it's his wallet.
I'm like, what? And the guy's like, put it back, take that paper and run, get out of here, don't stay here. Like, what is happening? Could this be like another version of Ben that kept running? And
it's like a future version.
Yeah, like that one was weird. That whole sequence, I was like, this sequence we could have done without this part.
I think maybe the idea is like, now that we're talking about it, is that like maybe he was meeting what his life could become if he doesn't stop it.
Yeah, if you don't stop this, you're going to be running for the rest of your life, kind of thing.
Which that's kind of interesting. So Ben's dreams start to get more and more disturbing, and then they begin to spread to the other people around him.
Because he writes down his dreams. Dreams are a very powerful thing, and if you write down a dream, which now I'm worried about it, I'm going to take off my Google Drive. I don't want people to read them. But when you write down a dream, you only write down what you remember, and then your brain fills in the blanks. So, I mean, basically, you have a dream where you're in a car accident, and you don't remember all the pieces, but as you write down the story, it gets more and more vivid, and maybe this monster was at one point, this is my example, like the first link in the chain, this monster was another person or like an animal, and it just mutated over time into this gnarly fucking 3-clawed thing, you know?
Yeah. Julie starts having Ben's dream of the blood-filled red balloon, and then she sees it in like the stairwell outside of her office while she's still awake.
Yeah.
So the Eric character, the professor is now missing, and when Ben starts to kind of describe to him this place in his dream that he keeps seeing, the trap doors, Eric immediately recognizes that, and he takes him to this part of the building that actually has these same trap doors, and he kind of initially dismisses it as Ben, oh, maybe you've been here before or somewhere like this.
Yeah.
And you're just like misremembering. Eric then goes to Julie's house. He finds that Julie's very disturbed. This is jumping a lot of time.
Yeah.
But this is the best I've got. So he finds that her she's trying to kind of lure him into a trap.
Like, oh, come inside. You have something to drink. Julie's inside. Meanwhile, the night before, you know, they saw Julie's decapitated head outside by a tree.
Yes. There's a lot that fucking happens here. There's so much going on. Because we're cutting between these three characters that are all being affected by this thing.
Yeah.
They're all starting to see these nightmares. Like there's the thing with the fucking teeth that Eric finds, and he puts them in a jar.
And then the jar fills with blood, and he's like trying to read like a journal, or he's trying to read as he's reading Ben's newest dream.
Yeah, his notes on his dream. He's being
plagued by the dream, which is the janitor and the dripping water and running, and I'm like, what is happening?
There's so much. So meanwhile, Ben's situation is deteriorating more and more. The dream creature...
There's a lot, guys. There's a lot.
Essentially, the two of them come to the realization that the dream demon wants these scraps from the article that the professor had found. Because that's like the last physical evidence that this thing exists.
And it can't have any physical evidence, or it exists, because it needs to poison a single mind in order to absorb it.
If there's evidence that it exists, eventually people can figure out how to stop it.
Yeah.
So like its idea is no one can ever know I exist. It's kind of like when you think of like a cosmic entity, like a Lovecraftian, like Cthulhu or something. You can't ever have the proof that it's real because the fear of it is what it feeds on.
What if
that unknown?
So, sidetrack.
Oh boy.
Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, people were terrified of the mystic and the unknown because it was unknown. Now we have video, we have photo, we have imagination, not just retaining it here and putting it on paper, but now we can make visuals. What if all of this did really exist, but the concept of this movie is like 100% true, and Lovecraft can never exist anymore because he is a predominant figure in the art, and he's like, well, now everybody knows me, so I can't exist.
Talking about
Cthulhu.
Oh, okay.
Even other like Jaws, Freddy, stuff like that. What if these are real entities, like old demons, old nightmares that now that they're true, now that they're out in the open, they can never exist because there's proof that they existed.
You're bleeding into Wes Craven concepts now.
And I love it. And I love it.
Because that's basically what Wes Craven's New Nightmare is about.
Yeah. Like, what if, like, people still try to believe in the magic of all of this and the mysticism, but because we've made so much media, this stuff can't exist anymore, and it can't terrify people because it's like, oh, it's, you know, it's just this character. It's nothing now. And I think that kind of flipped in my mind to where maybe that's why this film is so smart and people don't understand. That if that entity tries and said, well, I have to erase all proof of me, I can still terrify people.
Yeah.
But stuff doesn't terrify us as much anymore, especially horror fans, because y'all are like, oh, well, it's just a fucking movie. It's just a book. It's just a song. It's just a story.
Yeah.
It can't hurt me. But if it tries to wipe every evidence of itself, it can still terrorize you. So maybe I don't hate this as much as I thought. Maybe I just needed to be a little...
You need to sit with it.
I needed to sit and be smart. Every time we watch a movie, it doesn't matter if it's a blockbuster or a little thing like this, you and I definitely sit on it for a few weeks. And then we're like, okay, I hate it. So now I have a question for you. We saw Scream 2 weeks ago. How do you feel about it now?
I mean, we're not going to get it. That's going to be a whole nother discussion. We're not doing that.
No, but that's the thing. We did the same thing when we saw... Oh my God, we hate it so much now. I forget the name of it. Is it Captain Marvel?
Yeah.
In the moment, we thought it was amazing. In the moment, that movie was great. It's been years now. I fucking hate that movie. It's the stupidest movie of all the Marvel ones.
Right.
Fight me on it. Go ahead, fight me on it. It is dumb.
It's bad.
It's very bad. But that's the proof of these kind of things where you've got to sit on it for a little bit. And after I watched this, I was like, I'm going to fucking hate talking about this. But now it's like, oh, okay. Now that, you got two people one-on-one, it's like, all right, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. I apologize, movie.
So this is where we actually get into that scene that we were talking about. So Ben... adventures that through his dreams, they take him through a culvert and into a maze of sewer tunnels where he meets his doppelganger as well as the sultry dream temptress. Yeah, Ben 2.
Ben 2.
All the way up to Ben 10. So he escapes the tunnels and he finds himself running through an old ruin in an abandoned quarry besieged by zombies, which that's where those people that were wandering around in front of that house.
Yeah, I think they're linked. I think they're the other links. That's what I believe.
That's what I thought. My first thought when I saw those, I was like, oh, is that all the other people?
Because there was a lady walking in the background in a yellow dress that I was like, is that Julie? Is that supposed to be Julie back there? It was like a split second, and I could be 100% wrong and perceived this wrong, but I was like, is that Julie?
Maybe.
Because Julie's already been dead, for a little bit at this point.
So Ben is holding on to that scrap of paper for dear life.
Oh my God, yes.
He escapes and immediately tries to seek out Eric, who's been dealing with his own fucking nightmare
I ain't
problems.
having it, fuck off. He literally locks him out of the house, leaves him outside, knows the monster's there. It's like, Eric, you dick. His fucking faces in this guy, this is amazing.
The way this is described is not very great, but so at Julie's house, her headless corpse is discovered, but she's also there, fully intact, trying to
open
lure.
the door, let me kiss you again.
Yeah.
Don't you want to come in? But still, at the same time, she's holding the door shut. If you noticed, even if he opened it, I think she would have been like, "No, come with me," and shut the door. I was like,
it's like she's fighting.
She's trying so hard. And I'm like, okay, I could be entirely wrong.
I think you're probably right, because later on, towards the end of the film, Ben and Eric are talking, and Eric asks what he thinks happened to Julie and Professor Knox, and Ben says that he thinks, he's like, maybe the entity, when it went back to where it came from, maybe it took them.
Yeah.
So they could still exist, but here they're dead, there they're not.
Yeah.
So maybe they're kind of just their souls are
they're
trapped.
eternally trapped, where the other ones have probably been trapped so long they're just shambling about, but they're still so fresh that they're still trying to fight. Because you can see the professor trying to take the book, the book. It's trying to take it. And then Julie said something to him, to Eric, don't give up. Don't do that. Don't kill yourself. Don't give up. If you kill yourself, he wins. And it was like, oh, okay. She still has kind of some remnants of herself left.
So Ben ends up rescuing Eric from these absolute horrors, and they go back to Eric's apartment. The demon is basically closing in on them. They end up breaking into Haskett Hall, the college.
Yeah.
Where the trapdoors are. And the plan is that they're going to try and lure the creature down into the trapdoors.
Shut it. And seal it with the paper.
Yeah, Eric is supposed to shut it, leave it, locking Ben inside with it, and Ben's going to try and get away, but just keep the paper away from him
You
at all
knew
costs.
at that point that Ben was sacrificing himself.
Yes.
But Ben had a slight hope that if Eric was still there, he could make it out.
Yeah.
That the monster would just like go back into the dream and he could get out.
There's also a lot of speculation towards the end of the film here, because like when Ben comes back and saves Eric, he's now wearing the same clothes as the alternate Ben that we saw.
Yep.
And it feels very weird because you're like, is he dead? Is he like, did it already get him?
Yeah,
Like,
because there's a scene where he tries to rig the trapdoors with a rope and the rope breaks.
Yeah.
And the monster shows up with a mirror that he says there's a mirror in here that'll show you what you don't want to see. And it only reflected Ben. It only reflected himself, which you interpret that you think you are the worst of what is inside of you. Like, you're the worst.
Yeah.
And he hits him with the mirror, and you can see there's a scar on Ben, but he's wearing the same clothes as Ben 2 in the pipes now. And then the monster is wearing the same clothes that Ben was wearing when he was attacked. So now you're like, all right, who's who?
By this point, you probably think we're speaking absolute gibberish.
We are not.
This is literally what is happening.
If we need to recommend any movie for you to watch, like other movies, yeah, we give you a pretty good play-by-play. Fucking watch this movie because it's like...
It's very...
What?
It's very interesting.
This is one of those movies where I'll have to watch again in like later time to once I've sat with it and be like, oh, okay. This is a multiple watching film. Multiple watching. Not because you've missed stuff, but because you might have to rewatch it to kind of gain more of a perspective on what they really were trying to do.
Yeah. So what ends up happening here is that while setting up, Eric is attacked by the dream demon and killed. Ben then
realizes
what's happened. He takes the rope that is supposed to let go of the door, and he jumps into the hole with it, holding the door open,
grabbing the paper, holding onto the paper and the rope with dear life.
The demon follows him into the hole, and he drops the door closed, and Ben is then trapped with the monster.
And with the proof that the monster exists.
Yes.
So now you're thinking, did he do it, or is the cycle going to start all over again?
Exactly.
And I'm assuming this cycle starts all over again, because the proof is gone.
The movie ends on like this thing with it's Ben's voiceover reiterating it's like a poem.
Do you have it up?
I don't have the poem.
I think I might. Hang on. Oh, it doesn't have the whole thing. Just says, beyond dream's door is where horrors lie.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
But so you get that voiceover, but then it's like kind of, it goes back to this shot of a phone that Eric knocked over at one point, that when he put it back on the desk, it was still off the hook.
And then it cuts to it going bam, 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 bam. Mind you, this movie, if you're going to watch it on Shudder, is extremely fucking quiet till that last moment where I thought my ears were going to bleed.
So I'm trying to figure out what that could possibly mean.
Okay, this is my interpretation, but I've also grown up in the era of internet.
Yeah.
Where while that was off the hook, the knowledge of the monster and what was happening could have gone through the phone line. So it's possible there's a remnant of the story floating out somewhere in technology now. I think, and my interpretation is now the monster is not just a story by mouth or by paper, that it's possible that it's carried into the digital world to where horrors it's tough because all I could think of was literally like America Online, to where once you connect to it, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, but there's nothing else in the movie that
there isn't,
speaks to that.
But I also think that's why this director might have been a little bit smarter than I believe, because what if he was like, knowing that the phone's off the hook, knowing that anything could be listening, now the monster has a way to get through that way. And that was my interpretation of that being off the hook. Like, oh, okay, so the connection with the monster's not severed. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. I could be talking out my actual asshole at this point. But, I mean, that's what I think.
I don't know. I think I'd have to think more about it to really, like, figure out what that would mean.
Or it could just mean that, you know, he knocked the phone off the hook and this is the last remnants of them being alive because the monster makes everything disappear.
Yeah, I guess.
Because even the monster, when he took the keys, he took all proof that they were there. He wiped all proof that they were there. The phone being off the hook is the only proof that they were there.
Yeah, that's true. But that's basically, in a nutshell, Beyond Dream's Door.
Yep.
Shall we move into...
Absolutely. I don't think there's anything else we can talk about in depth for this one.
Did you have any favorites?
Let me get my handy dandy Samsung notes. My favorite line, I don't know who says it, I heard it. I'm not cooled to room temperature yet. I think it was the professor that said that.
Yeah, so there's this scene where we first meet Professor Knox, where he comes in to talk to Eric, but he comes in under the guise that he's a student, which he's very
desperate for his grades.
He's
panicking.
very much an older man, but he comes in, he's panicking, and Eric's like, you're a student?
Mind you, Eric's the new TA. Eric's the brand new TA, and his girlfriend is the other TA.
And he's like, yeah. What? I started late. Like, and he says that line.
I'm not cool to room temperature yet. Like, what?
Like,
that was the oddest
line.
But it stuck out in my head. Also, the little kid going, I'll find you. That creepy little brother thing that just stared at him that goes, I'll find you.
Because that was the entity looking for him.
That was the entity trying to find him, yeah. But we didn't know that at first. We're just like, oh, why is this kid being that fucking creepy? Never mind.
Yeah. The room temperature line was definitely like the most standout one.
Yeah, because you and I both looked at each other and went, what the fuck was that? It was so weird.
Look, the full line is like, yeah. Well, I didn't have the money before. I'm not cool to room temperature yet. Like, what the fuck does that...
If anything, that's what I need the director to... Because he wrote it too. Please explain this one line. I don't care about anything. What does that mean?
What does this mean?
What about you?
I think my favorite moments in the movie were the kills. Like the professor...
Oh, yeah. You were like, ooh, sick.
The professor's death.
Oh, that makeup was pretty good.
It's like, he crawls into the shot and he's all like... ripped
slashed
apart
and ripped. Oh.
And then the creature's hand just like wraps around him and crushes him
like a fucking grape. Just I'm like,
for a student film, that looked fucking awesome.
That looked really good. Honestly, it reminded me of Hellraiser when his face is all stretched out and he licks his lips. Like, that's what that scene, that visceral,
the grotesque
nature
of it.
that was great.
That was probably my favorite. Do you feel you would have done this any differently?
Oh, God, yes, 100%. I would have probably, because I'm a simpler mind and not a educated film student, I would have made this a lot more linear, a little more cohesive, and probably done something to make you realize that it was a dream and non. So, like, I would make, like, a filter that would like make it a little cloudy or make it evident to the audience. I see where it was going to keep it one straight path at the same time. Like, this is supposed to be a student film. You're supposed to be using this to, learn and interpret. But for a simpler mind like mine, I would have made it evident that they were the dream sequences. I would have had a little more context clues or evidence on what is happening. Maybe a little more lore about the creature or the dream or exactly what's happening, Kind of a little bit like Hellraiser, where you kind of get clues along the way about what the Cenobites were and why they were doing this and what they were doing this for, what's the purpose of this demon, this nightmare dream? Like, what is he trying to do? Not, boop, we drop you in this world, good luck, you know? What about you?
I definitely think I would have, just because of how the type of storyteller that I try to be, is like, I probably would have made it a little more, just a little more,
Just a smidge.
Coherent.
It doesn't have to be perfect, just a little coherent.
No, this was just a little bit too surreal and a little bit too messy for me. I did not hate it. I actually very much liked this movie. But I think it just needed a little more coherency. It needed to be a little less fucking obscure.
I knew from the two opening dream sequences, just the way they were, I'm like, oh fuck, he's gonna love this. I knew it. I knew it from the bat. I was like, god damn it, he's gonna love this. I did really like it. I thought it was a really cool, like, I thought this movie was very... It's incredibly visual and, like, incredibly visually creative. Yeah. And it's, like... It's an inventive experience to explore. Like, but it was too smart. Yes. Too smart. But it's made with, like, that same creative mindset of, like, Evil Dead was when Sam Raimi first started. And it's... I don't know, like, it's... While it's a little too much at times, it's still fun. But this is the type of film that you enjoy. You enjoy this. It was a cold open, a cold close. Yeah. No details are given. You piece it together. You enjoy films like this. Me, spoon feed me some information for the love of God. I need something. So is it mainstream exploitation or other? Okay, so I have been thinking about this one pretty much throughout the whole, 2 hours. I'm going to say that this is other. This is not exploitation, in my opinion. This is other because I believe that this director was trying to make something very smart, very visual, very interpretative for somebody else. It's not exploitation because he's not going deep enough into an exploitation genre, in my opinion. So I'm going with other, even though I know you're going to tell me that I'm wrong. I know it. This is how I'm interpreting. So, what about you? My interpretation would disagree. Disagree with me? Yes. Okay, I knew you were going to disagree with me. I knew it. I believe that this does fall under exploitation unintentionally. Okay. I think it is... He accidentally put it in exploitation? So, because there are, as we've been slowly starting to discuss, there are many types of exploitation. There are hundreds. And I believe he inadvertently made an artsploitation film. There are artsploitation films? Artsploitation films present intriguing, unsettling, unpredictable, and provocative films to audiences long numbered by filmic predictability. So... I think he went so artistic that he unintentionally made an artsploitation film. I would dare to say that this even slightly creates its own unique type of exploitation, which would be dreamsploitation, which is not actually a thing, but... You've heard it here first. We have made a new exploitation. It's dreamsploitation. But then you can put so many films in that category, though. There's hundreds of films right now you can name. Fucking Haunting. Fucking Hellraiser. All of these films. Nightmare on Elm Street. The entire fucking franchise. That's like a billion movies right there. It's like 7, 8. A billion. But... yeah, that's how I feel about it, personally. Accidental exploitation. That's in itself a genre right there. Accidental exploitation. Oops, I tripped and fell on his dick. That kind of accidental exploitation type of shit. So do you have anything else you would like to discuss about Beyond Dream's Door? I would like to revisit this one maybe in a year. I would like to see if we can find some more examples of this. Maybe watch those and see if this movie makes more sense to us in a year. But this one's got to go put away. Let us think. This was a lot. From what we saw last week when we previewed the actual movie, I was expecting something so fucking different. And now I don't know what to think. Because this was like, you're telling me this was just a student project fucking film that became something bigger. Like, oh, okay, all right, well, okay. No, let's revisit this one in a year. See how we feel.
All right, that's going to bring our discussion on Beyond Dream's door to an end, but don't go anywhere just yet. Please stay tuned for the coming attractions.
The class of 74. These gals have a plan. Oh boy, what a plan. They'd rather teach than learn. And who do you think they teach?
We outsmart men and we use them.
Well, it's about time that these males learn the facts of life, Gabriella, because it's gonna be a new day. Oh, it's gonna be a new day.
I believe in me, my body, my brain. Black is beautiful. You're beautiful.
Maggie, what do you want?
I'm looking for a thrill-a-minute. Have you got one?
Listen, Gabriella, there's just one thing for you to remember. Have a ball, because life's just one great big celebration, as long as you're the one that's giving the party.
The class of 74. You know what? These girls can pass the love test with straight A's.
Men dig good-looking bodies. And if you have one, I say use it. I'm making love happen.
The class of 74. Listen, fellas, when these babes turn you on,
Welcome to Sin City.
you're hooked.
I want to make love to every woman I meet.
I've decided the next film will be a real stupid film. I hope you're okay with that.
I mean, we've done a lot of movies that are very thought-provoking and some that are just crazy. So why not stupid?
Well, the next 3 films that I've picked are nothing but trash, nudity, and fucking ridiculousness. Good luck, you're welcome.
Sounds like a fucking blast.
Oh my god, I'm gonna enjoy just... Literally, I think the only thing I know about this is it's 4 friends in college in 1974 getting their kicks. Four women.
Sounds good.
Oh my god, bring on the titties and the nonsense, please. I can't think.
Yeah, I know nothing about Class of 74. I know that there's a lot of movies called Class of something.
There's even like an Australian sitcom that was called Class of 74, which you Google this movie and you get that sitcom. I couldn't find a lot on it. There's nothing. The play-by-play is going to be bitches get drunk and fuck. That's pretty much what the play-by-play is going to be. But and we are going to do Porky's. I watched Porky's
down the road.
Yeah, that's a little down the road, but I watched Porky's way too young on Comedy Central. I love Porky's. I think it's stupid. And I wanted to find a lesser known kind of thing. And then I realized, why not do both? So this is the first one, and then later down the line, we're going to do that one. But I just we're doing a lot of interesting movies this year, and this one was recommended through the Grindhouse website that we used, and I picked this the same way I picked... What the fuck was last week's movie? I already forgot it.
The Centerfold Girls.
I picked it the same way I picked that one. It was just by the poster and just by the tagline, and it was like, it says something like, these ladies enjoy having a ball after ball after ball after ball. And I laughed at that tagline.
To them, life is a ball. After ball.
After ball. After ball. And I was like, oh, there's dicks in this. I hope there's Pinot in this. That's what I'm hoping. Let's go from thought-provoking to absolute porno trash.
Absolute sleaze.
Like us. Thought-provoking and sleazy. Or just me.
Alright, that's gonna bring this video to an end. Nope.
How you doing? We used the brains too much today.
Alright, that's going to bring this episode to an end. If you want to keep up on everything that we're doing, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Grindhouse Podcast. We're on Twitter at Grindhouse Cast. You can find us on Discord, where you can chat with Leah about this film or any of the films that we previously covered.
Maybe not this film.
Definitely this film. Talk about this film. You could also suggest us some movies on things that you might like to eventually have us watch and talk about. All the links for everything are going to be down in the show notes. Listen to us first thing every Monday morning and give us a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your morning fix. If you like what we're doing and you want to show this show some support, you can subscribe to us over on Patreon or directly through Acast, where you can get yourself access to ad-free listening or unlock some fun, exclusive bonus content that we will eventually make more of.
I get the feeling he's trying to speak to me. That we should do some more content.
Yes, we need to make more of this exclusive content because we have been lacking in it.
Yeah.
But this stuff is just for supporters, so if you want access to that stuff when it finally comes out, get over there.
Yes.
Sign up.
Oh, seriously, the first two we have up are really, really good ones. I promise you.
Until next week, I'm Shawn.
And I'm Leah.
Thanks for listening, and keep watching.
Or listening. Or watching. Or do both. Do both, or the dream monster's gonna get you. Mm.